to try something we haven't done before. Can you complete the sentence? Erotic liberation is...
Erotic liberation is...
Erotic liberation.
What is erotic liberation?
Erotic liberation is...
Erotic liberation is fun.
You are listening to the Erotic Liberation Podcast. Hello, friends. Craig Cullinane here, and you are listening to the Erotic Liberation Podcast coming from the Body Electric School. This podcast, like the Body Electric School, is a place where we celebrate our erotic selves. This is a safe space for discovery and transformation and titillation and pleasure and liberation and wonderful people and deep conversations about real and important things. And I am so happy to be here with my guest and my friend and my collaborator in the joys of Body Electric, Douglas Brian Dreyer. Doug Dreyer. Hi, Doug. How are you today?
Good. Hi, Craig.
I'm so glad that you're here. I want to give a little bit of a sketch of Doug for everybody. Doug is many things. He is a longtime participant and contributor to the Body Electric experiment in a variety of ways. Doug has been the coordinator in New York City for how long, Doug?
About 9 years, I think.
9 years. And the coordinator is the person who is kind of the person who is the event planner and supports all of the people who come in to take our workshops in New York and many other. He has been the coordinator in many other experiences, intensives in different places as well. Doug is a trained and powerful and beautiful sacred intimate. And he has a beautiful massage practice in New York City and currently is in the process of a 3-year somatic experiencing training that we're going to hear all about. And I just want to say, I'm so happy, I get to talk to a lot of people and, you and I have been in many deep, beautiful containers together through Body Electric and other places. And you're a real heart friend. And I just want to say that it's really unimaginable how many people you've touched with your work as a coordinator, bringing people into this work, caring for people like that, and the emanations out from all the people they know. It's quite something. So welcome, Doug.
Thank you, Craig. It's so good to be here. I'm a fan of the podcast.
Beautiful. I'm so glad. And actually, everybody, Doug's birthday is tomorrow, January 17th. So even though this will be posted later, we're going to, send good vibes to Doug on your wonderful birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So Doug, we often start this podcast, especially, of course, for people who are really connected to Body Electric with the kind of your Body Electric story.
Yeah.
How did you get here? Like, where did it first come into your consciousness, first of all? And then how did you get to your first experience?
I think I don't remember exactly. It was a while ago, but I'm thinking that it came from, I was participating in a group here in New York City called, I think it was called Celebrate Touch. And it was a kind of a men's nude massage, group who would get together, and I would go once in a while. And I think that I heard about it from there. I think actually where they used to meet was a place that I did my first CBE.
Mm-hmm. And so you heard about it and then, signed up for your first experience.
I signed up for my first experience and I'm thinking it maybe was around 2005, possibly. I'm not sure. I know that I don't remember very much about it at all. I think, Craig, I wasn't quite ready because I remember that William McMenamin was the teacher. That okay. I remember. Mm-hmm. And I remember some hot guy who was sitting across from me at one point during we were just kind of sitting on the floor, and I remember that. And I really don't remember much else. I think I was very nervous.
Wow.
And so I did come back years later. And I think when I came back was in 2011 with the MMX group.
Right. So you had a first experience. You remember a hot guy. You remember the teacher. not so much of an impression otherwise, but then for some reason you tried it again. You were a part of MMX, Men Massaging Men in New York.
Right. And
Right.
so the whole group, we did a CBE, and I was somebody who had done it before. So I was kind of like, encouraged, to, head some of that up. And, so going into it, I mean, I'm telling you, the reason that I felt like I wanted to do it and needed to do this work was because I found myself in another long-term monogamous relationship.
Mm.
And for years, we had not been having sex for years.
Yeah.
And
So common.
Yeah. And I wasn't happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted something different. I didn't know exactly what to do. I knew I needed healing. I also was aware of some sexual dysfunction in my own, on my own end, and I wanted healing. And I was actually even scared. I was scared to experiment outside of the relationship with other men, just because of the nervous, performance anxiety and stuff. Like, what would it be like if I was with somebody? And so I think that's what brought me, to the experience again. And then I just kept going after that.
Speak about like what Body Electric means to you, or what's important about it, or what's the power or impact of Body Electric, in your words.
So I think what I first noticed was a peeling away of layers and layers of armor that I had built up to protect myself, that I needed, and realizing that being with somebody, being, intimate with somebody was really about that, about showing up naked physically and emotionally and in every way with somebody. That's what really is beautiful. And that's what, I started learning to do, and recognizing, the wounds that I had and acknowledging those instead of really trying. They were buried and really covered up. I thought, I didn't need to deal with any of that, happened so long ago. And I felt I was, I kind of liked to think that, since I had been sexually active and been having sex, at an early age, that I was not affected by some of the things like religion, very controlling religion in my youth, and then realized, it took years later of doing the work that, that there was that there, and it needs to be looked at.
Yeah. Strong programming, right?
Yeah.
And so then, you take workshops and you're a part of the experience. You keep coming back. You're on teams with teachers delivering the work, and then you become the coordinator for 9 years, 9 years ago. And so when you think about being a coordinator for the school and all of the work you've done, like, what comes up for you? Tell us a little bit about the role for you from your perspective, and what the coordinator does. And also I'd love to just, would you talk about like what you see in the people who come in? Like, what are the themes about who arrives at Body Electric, and what's at play in the space?
Yeah. I think, there's a lot of logistics that go into coordinating. It's about the space, it's about, renting of that, and, lunch and all of those things. But the best part is people who are contacting me and say, I've heard about this workshop. I want to do it. Can you tell me more? And then I have conversations with every person.
Right. And you have to kind of like be a little bit of like an armchair counselor a little bit, because people are really coming with their fears and their worries, their projections.
That's right. And I think one important thing is sharing my own story with them, telling them, that can be really helpful. And another thing I like to tell them about is how, because of the way that Body Electric workshops are, they're very structured. It's not a free for all, and that for me was very comforting. And I think it's comforting to a lot of people, knowing that they're not walking into some wild free for all or orgy or
Right.
whatever. It's a very structured thing. And because of that, it made me feel safe enough to relax into the pleasure that's
Yes.
available in my body.
I find that one of the norms and agreements that we share is the one about that we, in this workshop, we touch with hands, that's really important, that we're only doing, touch with our hands, no, not really any other parts of our bodies. And that everything is with consent. And everything is with permission, and we make requests to offer touch. We are asked if we want to receive touch. So just like the space and the kind of even playing field that creates in the space helps people settle and feel safer.
Yeah. And, people come for all kinds of reasons, and some very similar to the reasons that I mentioned for myself is, maybe they're older and they haven't been sexually active for a very long time, and they're maybe wanting to re-enter, and get in touch with themselves again as an erotic being. Sexual dysfunction, another one. All of those things that can be, and loneliness. They want to be in community.
Or like the ways that, typically it seems like is available to connect with other people doesn't have a lot of meaning or value or depth. And at some point in people's lives, they're I notice that people are desiring a deeper experience of connection.
That's right.
And intimacy than seems to be available and possible in the way that, like the world is structured presently.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And so you went through training to be a sacred intimate.
Mm-hmm.
So Body Electric offers a process, a pathway, what we call sacred intimacy training. I guess, how would you define a sacred intimate?
Oh, that's a big one, Craig.
Yeah, it's a big.
What's interesting is, there's a lot interesting about it. But I was on the podcast the other day. I mean, I was watching the Zoom meeting the other day where Andres Cordero was talking about his work.
Yes.
I don't know how you would call that.
Like sacred intimacy research for his.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So it's research, but there's another term I'm looking for that I can't think of. But anyway, and Joseph Kramer was on the call. Mm-hmm. And one thing Joseph said was such a gem. It was like, really, we first of all, it's like a calling for one thing. It's something that, you bring all your gifts to it.
Yes.
And those gifts may be different depending on, they are different depending on what you are. So somebody who is a massage therapist will bring their gifts. Somebody who may be a life coach will bring their gifts. Somebody who is a sex worker will bring their gifts. Yeah. So, it's all of those things. Yeah,
it's kind of the practitioner of the erotic arts, this umbrella term for someone who, in service to the healing and support of other people, can use this great toolbox that includes the erotic, helping someone wake up their erotic energy, helping somebody explore or reclaim pleasure in their body as a pathway towards healing or enlightenment or whatever is meaningful for them. Yeah, working with people with intimacy issues or dysfunctions, like you said. Body shame, all kinds of things. And so, and it's a rare space, right? I mean, where in some ways sacred intimates are able to enter into spaces that most other kinds of therapies really aren't. Those deep places in the body, those deep places around erotic energy that, for lots of reasons, other modalities can't. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you went through sacred intimacy training through Body Electric, and you have a sacred intimacy practice.
Yes.
And how is that for you? Like, how do you experience that?
I love it. And what I love about it is, it's always different. It's you're again, meeting people where they are. Mm-hmm. They come and I have a conversation, usually we have a conversation before they come get here. And, finding out where they are and going from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a beautiful space, right? Very intimate, very, like you said, intimate, individual for the person. Yeah. And so now you are in the pathway of somatic somatic experiencing training.
Yes.
Which is a 3-year program, right? And that's in New York City, right?
Well, it happens all over the world.
Okay.
And I'm, lucky to get into a New York cohort that I don't have to travel for that. I may have to travel for the advanced training.
Mm-hmm.
It depends. There will be one offered in Brooklyn, so that's nice. Anyway, yeah, it's and what's so I'm going to tell you how I heard about it, because I didn't know about somatic experiencing. I was studying for my CEUs for massage,
mm-hmm.
and was reading an article on PTSD and the treatment, and there was a lot about somatic experiencing, and of course, I knew that. I know that psychotherapists do that work, but I was really surprised to find that also it's open to body workers, can be trained
Mm-hmm.
in, of course we work within our
Seems
own.
like it makes sense. Yeah.
Right. And, the idea that trauma is stored in the body. Right. So, of course I work within my own scope of practice, so I'm not doing psychotherapy, but, we're all training to do it together. So it's so interesting. And what's really interesting about it is that it feels like I've been doing this work already with my, it's very similar to sacred intimacy work,
mm-hmm.
With meeting the people where they are,
mm-hmm.
being a empathetic witness,
And so for people that maybe the language somatic experiencing may be new, like how would you define it?
So, well, somatic is the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so experiencing is just that. We're inviting, the practitioners invite the client into experiencing, their body. Like if they're having chronic pain, if they have a certain, thing going on in their body, what does it, we might inquire, if they can describe what it looks like, and different sensations. Usually people are very limited in the language on describing sensations and emotions and stuff, when there's a huge amount of words that we can use to describe them. And the idea really, in a nutshell, what I think somatic experiencing is the idea that so it treats trauma and it treats, other stress related disorders, but it's the idea that trauma is not the event that happens, and it's not disease or disorder. It is an injury that can be healed. And one way, and the way of doing that we do it is really kind of, like I said, inviting people into their bodies to notice how they could, and eventually, learn to regulate their nervous systems,
mm-hmm.
maybe make more space and, just regulate their nervous systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And where are you in the process?
I'm beginning intermediate 3, the last piece of intermediate, in March.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I go into advanced.
And just, when you're in this training, describe kind of like what's happening. Are you working with people? Is it experiential? Like,
yes.
What does it look like, the training itself?
So there's all the the cohort, all of us, my fellow students, there together, and we will hear some work from lecture from the teacher, but a lot of it is he'll do a demo. Somebody from one of us will come up and he'll demonstrate how you might work, and also we then practice with each other in groups of 3, where there's somebody who is a working as the practitioner, and somebody is working as the lender, because we're lending our nervous system. So we call
Oh,
it
wow.
the lender.
Interesting.
And then there's somebody who is the witness,
Okay.
who watches and learns that way. And then we take turns in all those roles. So it's a lot of that.
Oh, wow. And I imagine going through something like this, of course, you're bringing up your own stuff.
Yes.
You're looking at using yourself as the teaching, obviously, is a big part of it, right? In addition to listening and witnessing and being with others. But so, what awarenesses have come forth for you about your journey and your past through this lens of somatic experiencing?
Well, I'm trying not to do a lot of self-diagnosing because I'm not a doctor, and, massage therapists don't diagnose. And, it's hard to do that. I mean, I haven't really, I'm aware as being a practitioner. I mean, a consumer of psychotherapy. I know a lot about it, but that way, and just from the body electric work and stuff. I mean, it's so amazing how I think I have such an edge there because of my work with body electric. We use a lot of the same language, and it's very kind of I don't know. People can get scared of this. People can get scared of the word shamanic, but I would use that word. I've heard Peter Levine use the word, so I feel okay saying it. Peter Levine is the founder of Somatic Experiencing.
And what's the name of the school exactly?
It is called Somatic Experiencing, and there's the website is traumahealing.org.
Traumahealing.org. Okay. Yeah. I know in Body Electric, I think one of the things, of many things that I have found incredibly valuable personally, and I think it's kind of akin to what you're saying, is the invitation to simply slow down and check in and be present for whatever it is I'm feeling. Feeling in my body, feeling in my places of emotion, or feeling places, my spirit, whatever that means. All of the ways that we experience ourselves, and it's interesting because I've been in therapy. I started kind of psychotherapy again last May, and it's been so amazing. I think, in my life, I've had periods of time where I've been in psychotherapy, maybe this is the third time in my life where I've just, I was feeling like there's things under the rug that are poking up and wanting to want their attention. And I can either do it with a lot of like clarity, or I can do it, in ways that are, not so useful. And so I entered into therapy, and one of the things that I find myself doing a lot is when I am feeling afraid, or I'm having feelings, just, having the tool of just slowing down and just being with it. Breathing into it, staying with it. I think that so much of my life I have spent running from pain, or avoiding pain, or anticipatory pain. And for me, the healing that comes, and the peace, and the kind of the way I can befriend myself by simply just being aware and available about whatever's going on and staying with it if I can bear it, and breathing into it. Because it always sort of changes into something else, especially feelings of like that I experience as particularly difficult, like intense anger, or sadness, or grief, or hurt feelings. If I can really just stay with it, I don't know, it like transmutes somehow.
Everything that you just said is very on point. The idea of slowing down, especially, I mean, that's what our instructor is constantly saying, slow down.
Slow down. Yeah. I've shared here on this podcast that, one of my brothers unexpectedly died actually on election night.
I know. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thank you. And it's been so wild to feel into all of the grief and the emanations of that. Because the truth was, we did not have a good relationship. We weren't really close at all, and we never were. And he was 2.5 years older than me, and I spent my entire childhood with him. And I'm not trying to tell some sad story, because we all have it, you know what I mean? Right. But like, he was not very nice to me. And it's been interesting since his death. It's provided me the opportunity to really descend and feel into some of that fear and grief and anger that I had sort of just compartmentalized with my brother. Mm-hmm. And noticing how my response to him was inspired feelings of like worthlessness in me. Like, why does this person, my brother who's older than me, treat me this way? And how I internalize that as me being not worthy of love and care, you know, and all the feelings that go around with it. All of those ways that lives in my body and how that's informed my life, right? And we all have it, you know, our own version of it. We're all human that way, you know, but I've appreciated the capacity to just stay with those feelings and really it's like, you know, on this podcast, we talk about liberation, because I really think that being able to do that, like this training you're doing, somatic experiencing, is a way to become free or freer. Like the pathway is the door of the feeling places in the body.
Yeah. And, you know, it sounds like you were talking about too, creating space in your body, you know, that your body has the capacity to hold all of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's so great that you're doing that work. It's beautiful.
And, you know, and I'm bringing it into everything. I'm bringing it into my massage practice, into the sacred intimacy practice. And like I said, it's in my massage practice. It was kind of like always the way I worked anyway, because I mean, I never was one that was very interested, honestly, in, you know, the muscles, origins, and attachments and things. Yeah. I really wanted to work deeper with the idea that, you know, like we say in Body Electric, our hands are extensions of our heart.
Yes.
And so I really liked, that's how I love work. That's how I've always loved working. I've loved working, you know, working on people on that level, the soul level.
Mm-hmm. Yes. You know, whatever that means. It's like, you know, I've been playing around with that language, soul, you know, spirit, those things that, you know, the sacred, you know, like what is sacred? You know, like Stuart Wilde says, how do you make something sacred? You say, this is sacred, and then you treat it that way, right? So whatever that meaning is for someone, not necessarily religious, but I've been really, you know, cooking with this investigation of like my own soul's realization. You know, that question, that experience, it's so deep and beautiful and important, I think. Although, you know, just for me, you know, I'm not suggesting anything or saying or espousing any, you know, truth about reality. But when you say the soul level,
yeah, deep.
It's deep. Another word for deep, honey. Another word for just, you know, realness and what's most important to someone.
So I wrote down Stuart Wilde because, you know, I've heard you say that quote before, and I love it, and I always think of you about it, but I can never remember, you know, who I should attribute it to. And right. I saw somebody on Facebook the other day attribute it to Craig Cullinane.
No.
Yeah. So I mean, that's great. I mean,
I always say who said it, so just so everybody knows, I'm not saying that I said it.
No, I know you've always said that, but I've just never written down Stuart Wilde. Now I've got it.
So can we go in another direction?
Yeah.
Let's share a breath. And speaking of breath, so I know that you have been exploring and welcoming people into another modality of consciousness and healing called CannaBreath. Is that what you call it?
Yes.
Please explain everything.
Okay. So, I think who came up with the term really was probably Jason, my partner, Jason Jacobs. Mm-hmm. And this is something that we have been doing ourselves since, you know, before the shutdown of the pandemic. So maybe 6 years or so. We had started going to practiced breathwork with a group of guys who was incredible. We learned so much, and it was great. And breathwork is super powerful. That,
Yes.
and especially people who have experienced working with plant medicines, it kind of can bring you back to that experience. It kind of opens up the same kind of place, I guess, the pituitary gland.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of opens up that same space. And it's powerful by itself. But cannabis is a good friend of mine. I have a good relationship with her, I say, because
Yes.
I from one of the circles I'm in, we call her Mother.
Mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a good relationship with Mother, that circle. And so we started practicing with Mother, and then doing the breath, inviting that Mother as, cannabis as our sacred plant ally.
Wow.
And then, because, it really is, I think, classified, it is a psychedelic. But it is, it's a way that you can actually, you don't have to necessarily, like, it's some of the other plant medicines will really just, once you've consumed them, there's no holding on. With cannabis, there is a little bit you can kind of control.
It's like a working medicine. You can work.
You can do a lot of,
exactly.
Things, you can do a lot of work. You can really, and with the breath work, it's extremely powerful. I mean, so the two of them together is CannaBreath, and Jason and I have been so, happy to be able to share this now with a group of men. We're doing it with a men's group right now.
Wow.
And, he has become certified as a breathwork facilitator.
Beautiful.
And so he's leading that part, and I'm kind of leading people again into their bodies, because I encourage movement sometimes during the breathing.
Yes. Good.
Self-touch. Sometimes people may want to pull off their clothes, and that's all invited.
So just like paint a picture of a session.
Yeah. And one thing that's important, I will say about the touch is they're invited to touch themselves, but you're, not invited to touch anyone else, because we don't want anyone. It's a very personal, internal experience.
Right.
Similar to like a big draw in Body Electric. We don't want anyone to be pulled out of their experience because somebody else is like touching them or something.
Right. So it's kind of like all these people on this personal journey, but everybody's together.
Yeah. So what would be ideal is if we could have a space where we could actually pass a pipe around.
Okay.
But most spaces don't allow smoking. So we ask people to come pre-elevated. So, to outside to smoke before they come in, or to take an edible an hour before.
Okay.
And, we'll start in a circle. I do bring my little bong that I've had with me for many years in my medicine cabinet, with some flower in it, just to pass along as like a talking stick in the opening circle, and to and
honoring the plant medicine.
Exactly. Inviting her in. Sometimes we'll talk about language, how important language is, using elevated instead of stoned. What are the different, what does that look like? Stoned versus elevated. And the idea even of calling it by cannabis instead of things like marijuana, which has like a really kind of troublesome history, racist history. Especially in the in the 1930s, of course, when they started the really kind of anti-cannabis campaigns, they loved that term because it sounded foreign and was scary. There was like Mexicans and black jazz musicians who were using it. How scary was that for white women?
Oh God.
So so we don't try to use that, but and also weed. I called it weed for a long time, but it's kind of it might be a little disrespectful, possibly.
Yeah. Wow.
So we can sometimes talk about the words we use, and we do a little demo. People lie on mats with blindfolds, And there's a playlist, a really curated playlist that will lead you on a journey. And so we do some active breathing, active 2-part breathing. It's very much based on the Wim Hof style.
Wim Hof. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
is that the
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's holotropic. I'm not sure if that's, yeah, it's holotropic.
And that's
style.
what Jason's been trained in.
That's Jason's thing. But I forgot what I was going to say. So it's very much based on, and then so we do that active breathing for about 40 minutes. And then we have about 15 minutes of really kind of different the music goes down, and we use we call it the float. And that's where all the effort that you've put into those 40 minutes can really show up in beautiful ways.
40 minutes.
Yes. And the first 5 minutes, the resistance is coming up.
Sure.
I can't do this. But then after a while, the body starts breathing itself.
Yeah.
And, then you're lying there for this 15 minutes where you're really encouraged to just stop all effort and sink in
to whatever's coming
to whatever
forth,
you're thinking.
Whatever's happening. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
what do you notice? What kind of experiences are people having from your perspective?
People are having all kinds of different experiences. They'll share that they've had some kind of psychedelic experience, where they're having some kind of visions and playing with light and things like that. Wow. And then also people are doing work. People are doing, psychological work. Whatever it is, deeper type things. I can't think of whatever, people have seen images of faces and.
Are emotions being expressed?
All the emotions are welcome. Yes, there have been. We have tissues in case people need that. That's all invited. We do some, we'll have 2 kind of releases during the active session where we'll roar. We'll let out, everybody does this primal scream.
Cool.
And there can be anger,
sure.
All of that stuff shows up and it's all, welcome.
That sounds like really powerful work.
It is, and just so much fun.
And so much fun. Yeah. Beautiful. Wow.
So we're doing that monthly here in New York City.
Wow.
So if anybody's interested, please, get in touch with me and I'd be happy to, we want to talk to you to make sure,
sure.
you're.
Doug's information will be in the show notes, everybody.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So sacred intimacy work and somatic experiencing and CannaBreath and body electric.
Yeah.
Wow. It's amazing sort of where life has brought you and what you're giving your attention to.
I know. And I really do. I'm telling you, I'm doing a couple other things too. I'm in the year-long Unmasking Mortality program with Steve Schwartzberg.
And what's that about?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's about a year. It's really, we just started. So it's an online thing and we're looking at our own death. And, we have 3 amazing books that we're reading. One of them is A Year to Live by Stephen Levine.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 others that are also equally as great. I have them right here, but I don't know if I need to do that, but yeah, it's a lot. And so it's just started. And I think, but we have support. We have a small, there's a big group online, then we meet in smaller groups, and we meet monthly.
So it's a year-long exploration of your mortality, your stories about death, your ideas about it,
what you grew up with, how it was as a child, what your feelings are now.
Mm-hmm.
And, people are coming to it from all different places, all different ages, all different, who is dealing with life-threatening illnesses at the moment,
yes.
who are on there.
Wow. Amazing. And that's with Steve Schwartzberg, who's a
Steve
storied, wonderful body electric teacher for so long.
He's a mentor.
Yeah.
He's a great mentor and friend.
Yeah. He's been on the podcast before.
I know.
There's a Steve Schwartzberg podcast for listeners if you want to get to know Steve a little better.
And another one I'll say is Colin Brown, who is another great mentor and friend. He's
Yes.
also been on the podcast.
Yes, he has. I know. I love him. He's been a mentor and friend to me too.
And I'm doing the artist way with him right now too.
Oh, amazing! How do you have time?
This is
You're like in
all I
it to
do.
win it.
This is all, you know what I mean? I would have thought, this is one of the ways that Body Electric has, really kind of changed my life is I think I grew up with the idea that I wasn't capable. And I think some of the people in my family, I think that that was my family's story. We're not capable.
Mm-hmm.
Other people are more capable than we are. And I think part of what I've learned, is yes, I am capable, and go ahead and do it.
Well, I think especially, in Body Electric, what I keep coming back to in some of the core ideas, I've been doing this for a long time in Body Electric, and I've been teaching since, 2013 and been a part of the school before that. But it's like the more I'm in this path or this experience, the more things are just getting simpler almost. And what I'm really curious about now again is we invite people, I invite myself to get curious, to tap and raise and spread and get in relationship with my own life force, my own power. And what's my relationship to power? What are the habits that unconsciously my body and my field of energy has formed to dance and relate to that power in ways that are useful and ways that aren't? And how do I surrender and let go to those ways, those limiting ways, and open myself up to the flow of power? And power is life force. Power is creativity. Power is pleasure. Like that power moving through my body, energy moving through my body. Another expression of that is pleasure, the energy of pleasure, so all these different words for the same thing. And I think that, what I'm hearing you say, and I relate to it, is like the more I do that, the more I wake up this energy source within me, this life force, it kind of burns away the stories of not enough over time. It burns away the shame. It burns away the limiting beliefs. It burns away ideas of lack of value or lack of worthiness or lack of capacity or capability, right, over time. And then it's kind of like, well, why don't I just do that thing?
Yeah.
I'm taking a keto right now. It's so fabulous. I'm in this art class. It's like, I'm like you, I'm doing like a million things.
You're doing many things. And, I guess you can't do pickleball this time of year, can you?
You can. It's at the Y, but I'm taking a break because of my body. Okay. It's like I have it's hard on the body. I love pickleball though, but
I know you do.
I do. But now I'm in this art class and I'm taking a keto, and I just got a piano in my home. I wanted to play the piano my entire life. And my mother, I'm the youngest of 8 kids, and I was like, I kind of begged my mother for a piano. She was like, I don't have time for this. Your brother Dave is a trumpet. Play the trumpet. And I was like, I don't want to play the trumpet. So I always had this longing to play piano, but I never did. And then my life happened, and pianos are big, and I'm moving around everywhere, and there's never a piano. And then I just was like, I'm 54, and I'm like, I'm getting a fucking piano. I want to play. And so I figured it out. And last week I got a piano, and I've been playing piano, and I'm learning this Bach etude, and it fills my heart with happiness.
That's great. And are you getting lessons, or you're teaching yourself?
I'm going to get lessons. Right now I'm just, I'm just learning this one piece, which is I can kind of learn myself, but I am going to get lessons. And I had such a story for such a long time that I started too late. So many things.
Oh yeah.
I started too late, and there's no point doing it now. Yeah. And it's just not true, because it's like the joy of living now. What do I want to give my attention to? What makes my heart sing? Okay, I'm going to do that. Yeah. And Body Electric's been a big part of teaching that. Yeah.
So these, I call their side effects of Body Electric. It's maybe not why we started, maybe not why we got into it in the begin with, but there's two of the first side effects I noticed, and I always say, are my appreciation for nature right now.
Yes, yes.
That's huge. And I don't know that I really did appreciate it before.
Body Electric was an entry point for that with me too.
And poetry is another one.
And you have a poem to share with us.
I do have a poem.
So excited.
Can I share that now?
Please lay some poetry on us.
Yeah, I'm going to lay some
Douglas
poetry.
Brian Dreyer.
Thank you. Let me pull it up on my phone.
While you're doing that, something else that has become aware of for me, just as I continue to kind of move in my life, is I take this art class on Wednesdays at this art school in Brattleboro, Vermont, called the River Gallery School, which is a wonderful place. I'm actually on the board now, and it's just a studio time, and it's just you go in and there's these couple teachers. You're not like learning how to draw, but you're just having space to create whatever you want. And so everybody's doing their own thing, but it's just time for creativity. And one of the side effects of Body Electric has been my relationship with my creativity, the power of my creativity, right? And I just want a space where that can flow, right?
Yeah.
And so I go to this class and it's so great. And, and I'm a beginner, I can't claim to be a great artist, and it doesn't matter, right? It's just about the space for it. And I had this awareness come to me there that I loved. All of a sudden, I'm doing my thing. I'm getting some materials. I'm putting my smock on. I'm getting my paintbrushes. I'm being all artsy. And this awareness came in from my insides to my consciousness that said simply, I like who I am here.
That's so beautiful.
I like who I am here. And so I've been using that lens, like, where else do I like who I am?
Mm-hmm.
I want to be in places where I like who I am. So it's been an interesting lens to check in on, or even I like who I am when I'm with this person or not, or I like who I am doing this work or not. It's a fun, tasty thing to check in on.
I love that. And, art is another thing. And I know for a while you have a workshop, right, about art. You brought
Creativity and Eros, yes. Mm-hmm. Creativity and eroticism, art and Eros, yes. I love it.
And I, for the last few years on New Year's Eve, I've been, and I did it this New Year's Eve. I'll stay home and I create a collage.
Oh, I love that. What a good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to do that next year.
It's a tradition for me now.
I just had dinner with my friend Cherie on New Year's. That was all we did. No, it was great, but I would love the idea of making art on New Year's Eve. Good one. Yeah. So poetry?
Yes. So this is something by Ross Gay. If you find yourself half naked and barefoot in the frosty grass, hearing again the earth's great sonorous moan that says you are the air of the now and gone, that says all you love will turn to dust and will meet you there. Do not raise your fist. Do not raise your small voice against it. And do not take cover. Instead, curl your toes into the grass. Watch the cloud ascending from your lips. Walk through the garden's dormant splendor. Say only, thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful. Ross Gay, huh?
Yeah.
That is so wonderful. I want to read a little bit of a poem that I really love. Can I read one?
Please.
I just found this one. I love this one. It's called Why I Smile at Strangers by Rosemary Watola Trauma.
I love her.
It is easy sometimes to believe that everything is wrong, that people are cruel and the world destroyed and the end of it all imminent. But there is yet goodness beyond imagining, the creamy white flesh of ripe pears and the velvety purr of a cat in my lap and the smear of the Milky Way. I carry these things in my heart, more certain than ever that one way to counteract evil is to ceaselessly honor what's good and share it. Share it until we break the chokehold of fear, and at least for a few linked moments, we believe completely in beauty, growing beauty. Yes, beauty. Yeah. Love it. Poetry.
Yeah. And I'm going to send you one too that I just heard from Colin.
Wonderful.
The other day. So I'll send you that. So it's amazing.
Yeah. So this is, of course, the Erotic Liberation Podcast. And we have a tradition on this podcast. I guess it's a tradition now. We have like 54 episodes or something. Where we invite our participants our beloved guests, to complete the sentence. Erotic liberation is... Would you do that?
I will. And I knew this was coming.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm a fan of the podcast. So I'm not surprised. And I'm glad I thought about it, because it's not easy. There's so much. At first I was thinking something about freeing the constraints placed on us by other, people, and really that we've adopted. What's the worst part? That we've adopted ourselves. But I've condensed it to what I think really matters. So erotic liberation is listening to the wisdom of our bodies.
Yes, simple, right? If we really do that, if we really listen to the wisdom, because if we listen to our bodies, the wisdom is there. It'll come forth.
Mm-hmm.
And we listen to hear, but we also listen to inspire action. Like when we listen to someone, I listened to them. That meant I did what they said.
Yeah. When I hear it, when I thought of it, and when I'm here, I'm kind of there's always a story I'm reminded of when I was 17, I guess, and living with friends in this gay neighborhood in Atlantic City, and there was lots of partying and gay sex and all of that. It was was young, but I remember sometimes I needed a break. I would sit at home and read, and they would all be going out and doing their thing, and I was listening to my body, and I felt that was for me erotic liberation. I don't have to be
right,
all the time,
right,
peddling it,
right. Freedom from the have-tos. How do I honor what's true for me? Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Well, what a delight to be with you, my friend.
Thank you so much, my friend Craig. My
body electric sister and colleague and dancer. And we've been in so much.
Lots of dancing.
Lots of joy. Lots of joy. Lots of play. The healing power of play.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, everybody. And if people want to learn more about your work, Doug, where can they go?
So, it's a complicated thing, but it'll be there. But it's www.massagebook.com/biz /the Apollo Edge.
The Apollo Edge. And this will be in the show notes too.
Yeah.
And we put it up. Okay, beautiful. And also, if they want to know about CannaBreath, how do they contact you?
My email is probably the best way.
Is that the same one for you just named?
Yeah. No, my email is Douglas B. Dreyer
DREYER@gmail.com.
Yeah,
Okay,
DREYER. Douglas.
And of course, if you're interested in taking a CBE in New York City, it's New York at bodyelectric.org.
Thank you so much for that, because there's some amazing things coming up. Something in March with Jojo Bear. He's teaching the Wheel of Consent.
In March. And then in April, there's a very special one happening.
Yes, it's a CBE2 that you're going to be...
That I'm teaching, exploring anal pleasure. So if you're interested in learning, in delving beautifully into that portal of pleasure, come join us in New York in April. So March with JoJo is the Wheel of Consent in New York.
Yep.
Amazing. And then in April is CBE2.
CBE2, Exploring Anal Pleasure.
Gorgeous. Wonderful. Well, thank you. And thank you, listeners. Like us, follow us. Tell everybody about the Erotic Liberation Podcast.
Yes.
Big hug to you, Doug. Thank you, friends. Until next time.
Bye. Thank you.
You have been listening to the Erotic Liberation Podcast, brought to you by the Body Electric School. We air 2 new episodes on the 3rd Wednesday of every month. So if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and check out our other episodes at bodyelectric.org, where you can also find out more about our in-person and online workshops to support your erotic aliveness. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at The Body Electric School. And of course, if you love the podcast, please let the world know and leave us a review. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, we're wishing you pleasure, embodiment, and erotic liberation.